Okay, for the next step, I'm gonna explain you a little bit how you can use synthesizers in maybe a bit more special, creative way as you used to. For me, it's always important that those synths are moving and that there's something special going on. And I'm gonna show you how you do that with my favorite synthesizers. And the first one is the Silence, which everybody knows, but you can definitely do very, very interesting things with that. Let's first send it to a channel. So now we just have the empty preset. For example, what I always like is that it's not re-triggered, this waveform. So every time you touch it, it becomes a little bit different compared to the other sine wave. So you hear that something is happening. Maybe we can do a bit of a cutoff. What is very often the case is that those synths sound a bit, especially the Silent has this problem, I think, that it sounds very digital. What we can do about that is, for example, we can get the fine tuning of one oscillator and just let it move slightly. I'll just overdo it a bit so you can hear what's going on. That's a bit too much, obviously. But if you just do that a little bit, it gives that certain aliveness to it, but you don't really know why that is. And another tip with synthesizers as well is that what I do most of the time is just make that attack not too rough. And what you do with that is, because the attack is not so sharp, you can actually most of the time put it a little bit louder in the mix. Because those very, very short attack times, they create this very, very short sound, which your ear is not really perceiving like a loud sound. But if you just look at the spectrum, it's actually quite loud. And with this, you can really ruin your mix a bit. So I would say go for a little bit lower attack times. And also don't let yourself being deceived by a crazy delay or a crazy reverb. I mean, almost everything sounds much more interesting with those reverbs and everything on it. Reverb, maybe a delay. But it's more important that it sounds very good dry. I mean, those effects you can always add to it. In general, I would say check all those plugins which are out there, but really pick your favorites and then really go into those ones, you know? So you really know what you're doing. A lot of synthesizers can anyway do pretty much the same thing, but it's just ordered in a different way. And I'm going to show you that. This is the one from Repro 5, and I was really, really big fan of this one. Especially the sound. I don't know, this preset I really, really liked, because every time you push it, it sounds just a little bit different. It sounds crunchy and aggressive and nice. And then I was like, yeah, why does this sound so cool, you know? And then I discovered what the magical recipe of it is. And I had it almost right, like exactly the same. That's one tone off now. now you can also hear that it quite often doesn't even matter which synthesizer you use. This, the Repro, Serum. Now there's a bit of reverb on the Repro, but other than that, you tell me which one is which. I was just trying really to make exactly the same, so I could also find out what made that sound so nice. You know, why do I like that sound so much? And I had it almost right, but then still this kind of magical, so you call it touch, was missing. But because I was just swapping between them back and forward, and then checking, is this really different? Until I was like, okay, now I really don't know anymore, you know, which one it is. And the basically what made this sound so magical coming from this Repro is that every time you trigger it, the phase is different. And if you don't do that, then it doesn't have this magical feel, and then it sounds very static. I can show you. Remove all modulations. Now it sounds very static, and then if you go back to the Repro, every time you touch it, it's just a little bit different, and that makes it interesting. So what is going on is that you just say mod source, and then you say note on random. So every time you touch it, play a different position of the phase, and yeah, so those waveforms are kind of colliding against each other sometimes, and this gives it this magical touch. And it's the same with the silent. You can do the same thing. You can say this phase. Oh, now it's not on retrigger, so it's different every time. But sometimes I still say I want to retrigger it, so it's the same every time. But then I just say I want to move it with the peak controller. So an LFO, so you call. And the difference about this is because I do it like this, I can say exactly how far do I want to go with that. Maybe I want to stay only in this position, you know?